Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Periodic Table of History. This is where we study history in 4 dimensions. What we have here is our time axis. We've been studying through Adam down to Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, David and Solomon, 1000 BC down into 900s BC, and then down here into where Paul is, and he made his missionary journeys in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. May seem like it's a long time ago, but really it is not. So let's look here on our map and get our other dimensions. The outbound journey is here in red. Then we have Paul going into Greece. He has to double back up into Macedonia, and then he tries to get back to Jerusalem to make the feasts. So that's the overview, but what we want to do is fly into this region because it makes it so much more realistic and so interesting. We can actually see where Paul walked and what he was looking at when he was on his 3rd missionary journey. So we're going to zoom in here to Antioch. This is where it all started. Notice this says Antakya today. It's very interesting to see how the names have changed over time. So this gives us a little bit different perspective. Notice the mountains and the Mediterranean Sea here. So Paul somehow made his way over to Galatia. And when we look north, we're looking into Turkey. You can see Tarsus over here, right here on the left side of the screen. And we can see that Paul had to make his way over these mountains to get into Galatia. Remember Derbe and Iconium and Lystra over here, some of the churches that Paul established. Now, the whole land of Galatia is this central area of Turkey, and Ankara is one of the major cities of this area. So Paul may have gone to Ankara, but all the Bible actually specifies is that he ministered all around Galatia. So you can see here the Black Sea is the sea over here, and then we have the Aegean Sea over here on the left. The Bible does specify that Paul went over to Phrygia, which is a little bit to the southeast of Galatia, getting more towards the west side of Turkey. Also in Acts 19:1, we have this phrase that Paul went through the upper coast. And in some Bibles it's translated the island coast, and some places it's translated the highlands. So right in this area we can see that we have islands, coastland, and highlands all at the same time. And this happens to be where the 7 churches are that are addressed in Revelations chapter 2 and 3. We have the church of Ephesus, then Smyrna, then Pergamos, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea. So you can see how all those pan out, and they are arranged right in the valleys around the mountain regions of the west side of Turkey. So it's real interesting that when the Bible talks about Paul going to the upper coast, Paul could have been going to these 7 churches, and he definitely ended up in Ephesus. See, there's Smyrna right by Ephesus, and then Ephesus is over here in the very west part of Turkey. And a lot of drama happened right here. Oh, just look at the beautiful water and look at those mountains in the background. It's just amazing to get a different perspective of Paul's 3rd missionary journey. And I encourage you to read Acts. It's going to be around 18, 19, 20, and 21 for Paul's 3rd missionary journey. A lot of drama happens right here in Ephesus. We have Aquila and Priscilla. They were pivotal figures for the Gentiles to come to know the gospel of Jesus Christ. And so apart from Paul, we just hear their names mentioned in the Bible, but they went on to be very pivotal figures in early Christianity. And Apollos is somebody who went here and then on to Corinth. If we look out across the Aegean Sea, you can see the Aegean Sea is right here and Greece is off there in the background. Well, Apollos was powerfully knowledgeable in the scriptures, and then he went off to Corinth. So it could have influenced Paul writing 1 Corinthians right here. It coincided very well with Apollos going off to Corinth, the city of Corinth. But we have the story of the demonized man here, and that was the demonized man pounced on the 7 sons of Sceva. Also Tyrannus here, not really happy with Paul taking away people from Judaism to Christianity directly. And then we have this other interesting phenomena that happens. Of course, because so many people are repenting and throwing out their idols and books of magic and doing book burnings of all this wickedness, then we have the silversmith who makes idols for Diana and other idols, and he causes a stir in the city. So all that is happening right here in Ephesus, in this region where we can see the ocean and we can see the mountains. So Paul says he makes his way off to Macedonia. So we'll go a little to the north and a little to the west to get up into Macedonia. Remember, this is the west side of Turkey, and Paul is just taking a ship. And we find out in 2 Corinthians that he actually goes to Troas, right by the ancient city of Troy. And somewhere along this line, maybe en route over to Macedonia, or maybe right here at Troas, Paul wrote 2 Corinthians. And we can see that he made that pit stop in 2 Corinthians 2, verse 13. Approximately the year 56. So Macedonia is a little bit north of Greece, and we can see Thessalonica here, and we can see Berea, which Paul talks about as Berea. The Bereans were known because they searched the scriptures daily. It's very typical of Greek culture to study books. So Paul makes his way over to Greece, and he was in Corinth when he wrote Romans. If he took his other typical journey, he might have been here in Athens, and then he might have come over here to Corinth. So now we have the Church of Corinth and this perfect spot for writing a letter over to the Romans, because you can see this waterway that goes out to the west, which would be a direct route going off to Rome. Well, the Jews are laying in wait for Paul right here, so he double backs. So we're going to zoom out a bit, and we see that Paul seems to dodge them. So I've got his tracks going back instead of on the coast over here, because he said he was going to Jerusalem. The Jews that were against him set up trapments over here, so Paul somehow made his way back to Macedonia. So you have the red where Paul is coming into Macedonia. Then he goes around to Greece, and then he makes his way back to Macedonia to escape the people who are lying in wait for him. So now let's take a look at the journey back. And I can't understate how important this is. The book of Romans has been the precursor to many a revival, and that was written right here around 56, 57 AD. I can't understate the fact of how important that book is. I mean, that is earth-shattering, life-changing. If you have not read the book of Romans, I will definitely advertise that it is one of the top books in the history of the world. So please read that if you have not done so already. And remember, you can pause this at any time and get a hold of the dramas that are unfolding. I have the scriptures here that Paul was in Philippi, Acts 26, But if you just read along, you can get a lot more of the drama. Now look in here, we get these interesting details like a 5-day boat ride back to Troas. See, from Philippi to Troas. So we can get our distance here, and what we can do is go from this bay over in Macedonia over to Turkey. We find out that's about 114 miles. Maybe it's about 120 miles, something like that. And it took them 5 days. So we can even calculate speed with the detail that we get in the book of Acts. So remember, Paul has gone past these islands on his previous missionary journey. So he is acquainted with this, learning very much how to get around. And we have this really funny story about Eutychus falling out of the windowsill. And of course, the pastors love talking about this story. It's when Paul preached so long, and maybe he was a boring preacher, that, wow, this guy fell out the window and died. And then Paul had to go out there and raise him from the dead. So pastors love telling that most interesting story that happened right here around Troas on the west side of Turkey. And he was there 7 days. See, look at that specificity. Acts 26. A lot of the rest of this is just Paul making his way back around, and we have the very bays and shipyards and cities and towns that Paul stopped at. Ephesus, which is Beram today. And then look here, Mytilene turns into Mytilene as far as the construction, Mytlene, and then currently Mittilini, the current spelling of that area. And see, Chios, that did not change at all. Now we're going to run our ship past the Isle of Patmos and then get over here to Samos. See, Patmos is over here where Revelations was written, and keep in mind those 7 churches that are right over here, starting with Ephesus. But we have Trogyllium, Miletus, and Kos. The ancient spelling Coos, the modern spelling is Kos. Then we go past Rhodes, Patara. We've just increased our altitude and our helicopter. I just think of it as our time machine. See, we can go anywhere on the planet and any time using our time machine. And we can look off in the distance and see Cyprus. They discovered Cyprus, which is really good. See, if you go the wrong direction, you might end off in Egypt. See? So it's very important to discover Cyprus, and then you adjust your calibrations, and you know that the coast Tyre and Sidon are right over here. So you can see Israel, you can see the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea over here. And it's just fun to look in here and see Sidon, because Jesus talked about Tyre and Sidon. A few other details in Acts 21. Paul makes it to Ptolemais, which is now Acre, and then Caesarea. Acts 21:8, and this is approximately 58 AD, somewhere maybe 57, 58 AD. So you can say, wow, that's back in the 50s. Paul was captured in the 50s. You mean the 1950s? No, I mean the 50s. So this is where Paul ends up, and of course he goes into Jerusalem, and there's a big stir, and that leads to Paul's capture, which was prophesied to him by Agabus there in Caesarea. So there's the overview once again. That is what we just flew over. Started out in Syria, went up into Galatia, Phrygia, the coast of Turkey and Ephesus, then Troas, Macedonia, Greece, Corinth, Macedonia, back to Troas, and then back past Cyprus and back to Israel, Jerusalem. Well, thanks for watching. I hope this was really instructive about the third missionary journey of Paul. It's real interesting to go on the actual journey and see the sights that Paul saw. And I encourage you to look at other videos too, where people have actually visited these areas. It's real fun to see the actual water and the actual area with the people walking around. There are several videos of that nature. So remember, in 2 days, tomorrow will be yesterday. I hope the best for you, and I will see you in the next video. Have a great week.